kids feeling what I felt. The world ended. I felt like, I felt guilty. What did I do wrong that made my father get up and leave without explaining anything? So
Picture growing up with a father who breathes fire and spits blood that the world knows as the demon. For most children, they're horrible nightmares. Sophie Simmons is just living life, just another Tuesday. Sophie Simmons is the daughter of KISS frontman Gene Simmons. But she didn't experience average parenting. Caught between the larger-than-life imagery of one of rock's most iconic figures and the relatively normal dad who walked through the front door, put on the gray sweatpants and joggers after a long week of touring. After Sophie chose to stand mostly still about her unusual childhood, she's decided to begin sharing her experience about growing up as Gene Simmons' daughter. What she found may shock you. Young Sophie Simmons grew up under some strict household rules that contradicted his glam rock star stereotype. Embarrassing moments that come along with having a famous dad known as much for his tongue as he for his iconic video riffs, and sarcastically heartfelt life lessons learned from the demon himself. A demon in the limelight, a surprisingly good dad at home. The greatest revelation about her dad isn't about any outlandish rock star behavior at all. It is really about how surprisingly ordinary and strict he was at home. There is a difference between the man the world knew, Gene Simmons, our fire-breathing, blood-spurting demon of KISS, and the man Sophie's was obsessed with homework, bedtimes, and instilling the value of hard work in his kids. Sophie has often mentioned how strikingly different Gene's public persona was from his natural personality. The fans expected a household of excess rock and roll, and the truth is quite the opposite. Gene Simmons, despite being a crazy flamboyant character on stage, was a surprisingly normal and traditional home. The man who shocked and thrilled so many with his shows was actually a teetotaler, who had never drank alcohol and also never used drugs. This was his philosophy in parenting as well. He taught and focused on education, responsibility, and financial literacy, rather than the great carnal expanse of a rock star. Sophie grew up in a household where education was important, and she encouraged his business approach. Jean was very much a product of his experience as an immigrant, followed by the influence of his mother. He was raised with a Holocaust survivor mother who instilled values of hard work and perseverance, and Gene brought that same effective and fortifying formula literally into their whole childhood, as well as parenthood. This meant their childhood was whimsical because of Gene's celebrity, yet verified and normal and surprisingly frank working-class values. Those working-class upbringing values Sophie experienced were even compounded by Gene's well-publicized famous work ethic. Gene Simmons is known for being conspicuously, never-endingly on the search for a business opportunity alongside the brand of KISS. However, this translated at home into teaching his children responsibility, goal-setting skills, time management, and the other value of having to make your own success regardless of your family name, and nobody was saying they had to succeed because of him. The reality TV years, life under the cameras. One of the most public aspects of Sophie's childhood was the family's reality show Gene Simmons' Family Jewels, which aired from 2006 to 2012. Sophie has now opened up about what it was really like growing up with cameras, documenting her family's every move and how this experience shaped her perspective on fame and privacy. Sophie reflected on the reality show experience, saying, "It was weird, but it was also our normal. We got to travel the world, but we also had to film it." This statement captures the unique challenge of having your teenage years documented for public consumption while trying to maintain some semblance of a normal family life. The show provided viewers with an unprecedented look into the Simmons household, revealing Gene's surprisingly hands-on parenting style and his relationship with longtime partner Shannon Tweed. For Sophie, this meant that typical teenage experiences like dating, school events, and family conflicts were all potential content for the show. Despite the intrusion of cameras, Sophie has spoken positively about the experience, noting that it allowed her family to share their genuine dynamics with the world. The show demonstrated that, under the KISS makeup, acting, and glam, the Simmons family dealt with the same stuff as any family. homework, chores, relationship issues, and the struggles of raising teens. Sophie's time on the reality show taught her many lessons about the entertainment industry from a young age. She learned about production, editing, and the difference between how people perceive your public persona and your real private life. This exposure to the business side of entertainment at an early age would later shape her own career paths and her understanding of the business of fame. The embarrassing moments and caring father. Some of Sophie's revelations contain some funny, embarrassing stories that come with having one of rock's most famous personalities as your father. Whether it's a school event or something dating-related, Sophie had to deal with the unique perspectives of being Gene Simmons' daughter. One of the most telling quotes Sophie ever gave about her father's protective side was when she said, "He's always been very protective. When I started to date, it was an experience for everyone." This comment alone conveys the type of intimidating experience the potential boyfriends needed to face when meeting the iconic Kiss lead singer. Sophie has shared many stories about how her father's status as a famous rock star created uncomfortable situations for both her and her parents during her childhood and teenage years. School events became complicated because parents would see her father and recognize him. Going out to eat or to the movies would usually turn into a surprise meetup with a fan. However, the most difficult part may not have been the attention, but rather explaining to friends and classmates the personality of her dad while he was on stage. Sophie previously mentioned, "When I was really little, it was scary. Then it was embarrassing. My friends were like, 'Your dad spits blood.' Now I just consider it his job." Which is a very weird job. I think this evolution of her understanding demonstrates how she learned to be comfortable with her father's occupation over time. Dating was dynamic in itself, as Sophie mentioned that potential boyfriends could not simply face the normal parent approval situation, but also the intimidating fact that they were taking the daughter of a rock star, famous for ripping heads off and through by throwing his guitar across the stage. Can you imagine trying to impress a girl's father when her father breathes fire and has a tongue that is a cultural phenomenon? Sophie's ability to find humor in any situation demonstrates resilience and the strong foundation her parents built for her, even with unconventional circumstances. Lessons in business from the demon. The most valuable piece of Sophie's value would be the business lessons she learned from her father. Gene Simmons is not just a rock star, he is a marketing genius and savvy businessman who has leveraged Kiss into one of the most merchandised brands in entertainment history. Sophie learned very quickly that success takes much more than talent. It takes hard work, it takes smart business decisions, and it takes financial responsibility. Gene's famous belief about money and work ethic was always backed up in the Simmons household. Sophie noted he always encouraged us to know the dollar value. Nothing was given to us on a silver platter. If we wanted something, we earned it. This extended to Gene's famous line to his children, "I am rich, you are not, you will earn your own." Such a philosophy may seem a bit harsh, Sophie explained. This challenged them to be independent and self-reliant people. Instead of raising entitled children who expected to ride the coattails of their father's success, Gann ensured Sophie and Nick fully understood they had to chart their own trails. The lessons learned about business principles weren't academic. They were examples of entrepreneurship and brand management. Sophie witnessed her father build Kiss into a billion-dollar brand with marketing, merchandising, and licensing, slowly strategizing before carefully managing his brand. Each of these lessons has had implications on her career choices and her ability to grow her own personal brand. Establishing her own voice and identity. The most significant part of Sophie's story is how she utilized her unusual upbringing as a foundation for her identity and career. Rather than being swallowed up by her father's gigantic fame, Sophie has worked hard to become her own person through her unique talents and viewpoints. Sophie has been honest about the struggle of having her own identity, when most of the time she is known primarily as Gene Simmons' daughter. It's a blessing and a curse. Sometimes I get opportunities because of my name, but I also have to work twice as hard to prove myself. Her level of honesty here shows some cognizance of facts regarding advantages and disadvantages of her famous lineage. For instance, Sophie decided from the beginning of her career that music and entertainment would deliberately be separated from Kiss so that she could develop her own voice as an artist. Sophie has stressed the importance for her individual music to speak for itself, stating, "I want my music to speak for itself. I think it's important for me to have my own voice." Her determination to under on her own merits reflects the independence instilled in her by her father. The relationship Sophie has with her father has clearly changed now that she is an adult. She respects everything he has accomplished and appreciates everything he taught her over the years. Still, she has created boundaries that are allowing her to comfortably carry on as her own person. Gene's support of her independent decisions in her career is proof that his parenting approach of encouraging self-sufficiency has worked as intended. What do you think of Gene Simmons' parenting approach of having his children earn their success? Let us know your view in the comments. And if you enjoyed watching this glimpse of the private life of a rock icon's family, please give us a like, subscribe to Factsverse, and hit the notification bell to make sure you don't miss more exciting stories from the entertainment world. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.